Hey guys, my local comic shop had a huge sale where basically you can get a long box full of books for $40, and I ended up getting around 290 books, I believe it was, for $40, plus a couple other things, but mostly supplies. Anyway, one of the books I got, as you can see, is Action Comics number 700. I remember seeing this one on the newsstand and wanted it, but really didn't want to pay, $3 for it. But I think the average cost of these books ended up being about 17 cents, so even cheap as I am, I was willing to do that. So I also got Superman number 632. As you can see, this is one where Lois Lane gets shot. I have never seen Superman as powerless in a comic as he was in this one. This one was a departure from any Superman story I've ever read. Got Superman number 675. Cool cover, story, but if you're a Superman fan, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Picked up Daredevil number 316. Daredevil Annual number 8 with Deathlock. I've always been a Deathlock fan, so thought I'd pick this one up. Got Daredevil number 70 and number 71, 72, and 73. I haven't got all the parts of this story, but I would recommend it. It's Daredevil only makes like a couple of appearances in it, and mostly it's in flashback form, but the story is very good, so if you can find them for cheap, I recommend picking them up. It's called Decalogue. Got Power of Shazam number 6. And number 8. Got Green Lantern number 184. Also got the new series, or the newer series, Green Lantern number 21 and number 22, which is part of the, as you can see, Sinestro Corps War. Also was able to pick up number 24, great cover, and the finale, number 25. This one ties into, of course, Blackest Night. It also kind of ties into Crisis, and the artwork in it is absolutely phenomenal. Also picked up Green Lantern number 64, Parallax View, part 2 of 2. Found some Mr. Terrific number 5 and number 6. Just a little bit here. Also got Mr. Terrific number 7. I'm a Mr. Terrific fan. These stories were just kind of average. Picked up Magnus, Robot Fighter, and Nexus number 1 and number 2. Also got the free comic book day edition of Dr. Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter, and both of these stories are written by Jim Shooter, which I don't buy very many new comics, but I hadn't seen his name on anything in a while. So also found Predator versus Magnus Robot Fighter number 1 and number 2. Let's see here. Picked up Ultimates 2 number 4, number 7, number 8, and got Annual number 1. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about Ultimates and that they really didn't like it, but to me, I mean, they're pretty well drawn. I mean, the stories are decent, so, and for cheap, for 17 cents, hey. Picked up OMAC number 5, where he fights Frankenstein. Got OMAC number 7 and number 8. Found some old Marvel 2-in-1. So I got number 70, number 81, and number 84. Got a couple of Iron Man. Got number 275, which the Mandarin, and this one does not come out well in the end. I got Iron Man number 300. Iron Man Annual number 12. Got Thor number 432, which this one reminded me of one of the old Jack Kirby, Stan Lee stories from the 60s by the way that it ended. Big fan of Wallywood's Thunder Agents. Picked up number 1 of the Deluxe Comics series from the mid-80s, which this one is very, very good from what I've seen, and we'll try to get the other 4 issues if I can find them. Got Thunder number 1 from Soul Sun Publications, which was Saul Brodsky's son started this company in the, I guess, mid to late 80s, and they tried to get into some comic books, but I don't think it worked out very well because that's the first and only issue of that series. Found this comic kind of strange. Ripper number 1. It says across the top, recommended for mature readers, not for children. After reading these, I can see why you wouldn't want your kids to read them, because they're horrible. And I don't mean horrible as in, you know, bloody or whatever, which they are that. The stories are just really, really stupid. But I also picked up number 2 and number 4. Got Invasion Book 2, Battleground Earth. If you saw my last video, you know that I also picked up number 1 in the last one. Well, this one, you know, artwork's pretty decent, but story's kind of eh. Our Army at War, one shot from 2010, which it's parallel stories, and I enjoyed it a lot. Jim Starlin's Breed from Bravura Comics. There was another name for this series, but a comic company, but I can't think of it to save my life. That's what happens when you get old. Alright, let me get these out of the way. Also picked up Siege, Captain America, number 1. You're going to see a lot of Captain America in here, so stay tuned. Also picked up Alpha Flight number 12. I've always wanted to read this one, and because I really wanted to see if somebody actually did die, and they did. Alright, picked up Green Hornet number 10 from Now Comics. New 52 Futures End number 31. the fake Planetary special edition, which reprints the very first chapter or part of the first issue of Planetary. Hellblazer Special #1 from 1993. This is the first Hellblazer book I've ever read, and I can tell you this much: it's, you know, as a kid growing up in the 70s, friends, I didn't have stories like this back in the 70s. So if you want to see, for those of you who've never read it, if you want to see a dark, sordid tale, you need to pick this one up. I've been hearing about Fables, so I decided I'd pick up a couple issues of that. I got number 66 and number 67. Got War of the Gods number 2 and number 4. Picked up JLA Classified number 10, mainly because it had Batman on the cover. Picked up Seven Soldiers of Victory Frankenstein number 1 of 4. Picked this one up, still in the bag with the stickers still in it. Worlds Collide. Milestone and DC had this, you know, confab comic back in the mid-90s. Got Chaos Quarterly number 3, I believe it was. Anyway, it's got Evil Ernie and Lady Death, Crippler, Cremator in it. Pretty cool. Marvel Secret Wars number 11. And we do actually get to see the face of Doctor Doom in it. Micronauts number 2. Picked this one up because it was just in really, really good shape, and you don't see that very much from a book from the mid-70s, late 70s. Micronauts number 16 and 17. Also got number 26 and number 27. Justice League Europe 48. Got Darkness versus Eva, Daughter of Dracula, number 2. Picked these up because I always liked this character, which is Airboy from Eclipse Comics back in the mid 80s. This is number 1, number 4, number 6, number 9, number 15. Push it back a little bit. Picked up some Dawn, Return of the Goddess, number 3 and number 4. Mage, Image First, number 1, which reprints more or less his origin story. Fighting American, number 1. Jonah Hex, number 21. The Spirit, number 1. Legion of Superheroes, number 315. Which I meant to add, there was a Legion of Superheroes book that I showed in my last video. This actually got a preview somewhat of what's going to happen, what was going to happen in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it's actually a preview about 2 years before it actually happened. I believe it was number 295. It's either 294 or 295, so if you don't see which one it is, watch my last video and you'll see. Got Legends of the DC Universe, number 35. Picked up Doc Savage, number 2 and number 3. Love Mr. Monster, so I picked up Mr. Monster number 3, I believe it is. And if you look closely at the junkyard sign, so I don't know if I can get this in there or not, you'll see it says Shelton Drum Junkyard. For those of you who are from the southeast, you know Shelton Drum is the owner of Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, and puts on Heroes Con every year in Charlotte. Also got number 6. Picked up Mr. Monster High Octane Horror number 1, which is mostly reprints of 1950s horror stories that are pre-code. They're pretty cool. So if you don't want to spend the money for the originals, you can pick this one up, and whichever other issues are in this series, and you can read them for a lot less money. Got Earth 2 number 10. 0 Hour number 0. Got The Unknown Soldier number 7. This is not your daddy's Unknown Soldier, guys. If you pick this one up, this one is way different. This is totally different Unknown Soldier, totally different setting. Got The Web number 1. If you watched my last video, you know I'm a fan of these old MLJ Archie heroes from the early 40s. JLA Black Baptism number 4. Got Fatal by Ed Brubaker number 17. I want to recommend this one. This series is really good. Just what I read from this one issue. If you can find these cheap, I fully and heartily recommend you pick them up. Got Danger Girl number 3. I like spy comics, and I especially like spy comics with good-looking women in them. Got Mystic Comics number 1. Lady Death Boundless, which is a free comic put out several years ago. Got Tom Strong number 1, which is actually a reprint they did back during Watchmen. My camera's about to run out of video space, so I'm going to cut this one off right here. Stay tuned, and I'll be back with part 2 very soon.